Again, Jason Van Osdal with Iowa Inspections. Thank you guys for coming tonight. I respect your time, and we're going to go through this clearly and concisely, and then I'm going to answer all your questions at the end, so that way you walk out of here. I'm going to be the last one that leaves tonight, so if you don't feel comfortable about coming up to the microphone, I'm going to hang around so we can talk afterwards and talk about the individual issues or the property questions that you want to talk about. Going through this, we have 7 communities that take care of their rental program through Iowa Inspections as their inspector. I've been doing this since 1999, so I've been doing this quite a long time. I've been through thousands of rental properties. I feel like I've been through every kind of a rental issue that a person could ever be through or been put through, but quite honestly, we're oftentimes surprised about what we find out there in the field. For those of you who are just a little bit nervous or anxious or have some mixed feelings about this program, the fact that you're here tonight tells me that you care deeply about your properties, and for that reason, more than likely, based on what we've seen in our history in the past of doing this with many other communities, you're not who we're concerned with. And I said this at the last council meeting to a person who was concerned about doing the inspection process and moving forward with it. That's not the point. It's the property owners that live out of state, live out of town, had the properties willed to them through the family trust or whatever, that have never been to this town, have never been in their properties, and as long as the check comes in the mail, that's where it starts and stops for them. That's why cities choose to use a rental program, to bring that housing stock up. So if you're asking why, if you're coming to this meeting asking why we're doing it, that's why we're doing it. The City Council has seen through their own eyes what the other houses in the community look like, which ones that you're driving down the road and go rental, 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 and that housing stock, just because of who they are or where it's at, they want to see that housing stock brought up. What they, council and others, may not know is, and this is the fact, you can drive around Oskaloosa, which would be your closest one. We're doing in Knoxville, but we're just getting started in Knoxville. But in Oskaloosa, you could see very clearly that when the city as a whole really embraced the rental inspection program, it spread like wildfire down the blocks. And when you have a property owner like yourselves that have started to do some things to improve those properties, the contract sale next to it, or the person that doesn't maintain their property that's next door on the other side, they start raising an eyebrow and cleaning up those properties as well. You will see that in this town as well. You absolutely will see that. And it's going to be a nice little benefit. So that's one of the things that happens with the rental program when you can really put your back into it and know that you have plenty of time to do this. By design, we're not starting this program next week, next month. We're over a year out. You can see the timeline on there. We're over a year out by design to let you have all summer long, all fall long. You know, the weather won't be a problem to bring your properties into compliance if they're not in compliance right now. Not saying that they are, but at least you would have plenty of time to wrap your head around what needs to be done, do your own pre-inspections. Pre-inspections are huge. If you're not doing pre-inspections on your property right now, if you don't go into your property, you might be surprised. I'm oftentimes surprised. I can tell you horror story after horror story after horror story, which I won't do tonight, of when I walk into a property with a property owner and things that we would see, the wife of the landlord breaks down in tears because the house is absolutely completely destroyed. And so doing those pre-inspections, and I tell people this, put it in your lease agreement with those tenants to change your own furnace filter. That lets you get in that property every other month, take a look at that, take a look around, see if they're raising pit bulls in the basement. All that kind of stuff that happens that you would never think that would happen in there, it gets you back in those properties. And it's a great thing to do. So, so with that, I want to go down through the process of how the program is intended to work and let you know what you can expect so that when you walk out of this meeting tonight, you shouldn't really have any questions about how to move forward with the rental program. So actually, this is kind of repeating what Laura said. You've got a rental registration sample, and those samples are going to be nearly identical, identical to what other communities have done. Ankeny started it a very long time ago, I think 1982. Through the hard knocks and what worked and what didn't work, all of these forms, policies, checklists have been derived from that, and it's worked out very, very well. So you'll fill out a registration for your properties. So you're getting a registration form, filling that out, submitting that back into the city. The city is basically just going to keep a listing on their servers of the rental property owners and what properties that are listed as a rental property. And then with that, you'll get basically a packet of information of what the policy is, probably the ordinance information, the checklist, and some other information that you can have on there. So with that, you can move forward after tonight, and what does that mean to bring your property into compliance? And quite honestly, realistically, it's not that much different than what you probably already have your properties in line right now. With the addition of a fire extinguisher. You might not have a fire extinguisher in there, but that would be one of the things that you would have to add if it's not there already. And probably a few more smoke detectors and a carbon monoxide detector. Let me throw that in there too. Well, and we're going to go through that. So with that, you'll be registered with the city in the near future. They'll have a working list that's going to keep on growing for rental properties that become evident to the city. And then sometime after next July, as the city seems that they want to do the process, typically they do it in quadrants. Most communities do it in quadrants, and we like that. That way we can focus on one area and move to the next. And you'll get a little postcard in the mail that says that your property or properties listed at such and such are up for rental property inspection. Please contact Iowa Inspections, and then a phone number, 515-587-0065. That takes you right to a dedicated line. My youngest son, Max, answers the phone, and then he puts you into the calendar for a rental inspection. Some of you may have already done rental inspections in other communities. I don't know if you've ever done that or had other properties that you've had to go through this process before. It's going to be very, very similar to that. So we're going to schedule you into our calendar. That calendar is visible to the city staff as well in real time. So when we are scheduling, when the city staff is looking through, did they schedule? They can see that that property, 101 South Main Street, is scheduled for a rental inspection, and then it's going to have some basic information for the contact information in there as well. So we will do that, answer any questions that you have. Every property is a little bit different, and if you want to ask some questions, we'll be able to answer those for you over the phone so you can move forward with that and get ready for your inspection. We'll arrive on time for our inspection. Your time is important to us, and we expect the same from you. Oftentimes, you'll be getting a text from us, hey, running 5 minutes early, 15 minutes early, got done early with the last one, we're sitting here in the driveway, that kind of stuff. We are communicators, and it works out very well. I demand it of myself and my other inspectors that do that. There are 4 of us total that do inspections. So we're not going to leave you hanging. We're not that kind of people. It hurts the program to be unfair with people's time, and it really doesn't take that much time to go through a single family home to make the rental program work. We will go through the property, answer all your questions. Does the tenant need to be present? No. Do you need to be present? We prefer it to be. We absolutely need to have somebody of your representation that you'll designate if you can't be there. If you're in Florida for the winter or something like that, we respect that. When you schedule it, you're going to say, hey, you're going to meet my brother-in-law, Jim, and he's going to walk through the property with you, and here's his contact information. We totally understand that. The other thing is you guys might have more than one property. And let's say you got a notification for one of your addresses, and you're like, well, they're all ready to go. Great. Let Max know when you're scheduling it. I've actually got 5 houses, Max, and can we go ahead and block those in? Yes, we can. Absolutely we can. We do it very, very often. I've done whole days with property owners, just getting them done, just get them done, because they have so many properties to go through. So if you get a notification in the mail and you want to go ahead and get them all taken care of because you've had plenty of time to get them done, great, no problem. So that's one of the things that we can do for you. So we've done through that. We're going to go through the inspection. We're going to hopefully pass it. That's our goal. You might not think it. I'm going to tell you right now, We have a lot of inspections. We do over 8,000 rental units. Our goal is for compliance, period. And we want you to pass. There's not a financial incentive for us to keep on coming back. Do we? Sure. Will we have to? Absolutely. But we would love for you to pass the first time, and you're hearing it from me. That's absolutely the truth. If you do have a couple of deficiency, missing an outlet cover, missing a switch cover, a fist hole in the wall that needs to be taken care of, some minor, what I call dings, 3 dings, pictures, send them to us, good. So you're going to pass, so the city would see pass with notes or under conditions like that, and then we would list those things down there. And then at that time we would say, Mr. and Mrs. Jones, can you have pictures back to us by the end of the week? Nope, I got to go to such and such. Okay, how about by the end next Friday? 2 weeks is as far as we go out on pictures, because otherwise it just drags on and on and on and on and on. So you'll take pictures of the fist hole that you got repaired, you got your outlet covers. Sometimes it happens that day. I'm going to go to the hardware store, I completely forgot my fire extinguisher, and yes, I can get that fixed, tighten up my handrail. Sometimes we'll just swing back by, meet you there, thanks a lot, take care of it, you're done. Now, when there's a list of deficiencies of something that's more than 3 items on that list, then we're going to do a reinspection. We don't want that to happen, but sometimes we have to do a reinspection. So that we're going to schedule with you either right then, or you've got 60 days by the city ordinance to get your property into compliance, and then call for a reinspection. If there's something outstanding, a storm came through, or there's some kind of a family issue, we'll always work with you to get that done, as long as we're moving it in that right trajectory to get it taken care of, always. We deal with small towns every day. I'm actually the building official for 21 towns through my day job at Veenstra and Kim. I deal with small towns for building inspection stuff every day, all day. This is my side business, Iowa Inspections, and we take care of 7 communities, and I also take care of 2 communities for their business inspections, going through every business in those towns. So we're very well versed in building code, property maintenance, and dealing with kind of some strange issues that you feel that you might have. Well, quite honestly, we've probably been through it a few times, and we can get through that with you. Communication is huge for us. We like that. As long as you're working towards getting it in compliance, that is the goal. That is clearly the goal. So with that, so if you pass, we're going to have it in the calendar. We're going to go out to the curbside and do it on our phones, really. In real time, the city staff is going to see that it passed. If it didn't, we're going to list the deficiencies, give that back to you in writing, text, or email, right then and right there. So before you leave, you're going to know what needs to happen, and preferably reschedule if you can to get the reinspection taken care of. So you might have had a chance to go through the rental checklist that's there, and like I said, this hasn't been set in stone by council yet, but it's going to be very, very, very close to what we have here, because it just makes sense. Your property inspection happens at the curb line. So having that house number up, and if you don't have house numbers, either on your own house or your family's house, especially your rental house, that needs to happen visible from the curb line. So have that up. That's the first thing that we're going to look for, because we're looking for the address to show up. Having your exterior property. So roof and walls not deteriorated, peeling paint in excess of 50%. That's something that people oftentimes like to talk about, but quite honestly, there's really no reason to talk about it too much and in depth. We're not going to measure anything in 50%. If it hasn't been scraped or painted since it was built, more than likely it needs it, and just take care of it. You'll have plenty of time to do that. If you just got one wall or a little bit on one wall that has some issues with it, I'm not concerned with that at all. When you're driving down the road and you can go, that house needs painted, that's what we're talking about. That's what we're talking about. So logically, with your own eyes, if it needs to be scraped and painted, do that. And that's also true for the garage as well. If your shingles have deteriorated to the point where they're curling up, they're missing, you've got holes in your roof from the garage or the house or whatever the case may be, get that taken care of and repaired and or replaced before we get there. Let's see. Accessory buildings. We go in accessory buildings. So oftentimes a property, not yours but others, will want to walk in there, and the property owner will go, no, you don't need to go in there. That's a private garage. Well, it's on a rental property, and we're going to go into it. Very, very, very often, the renter will sublet that garage to a person or a family, and that's where they live, is in the bed on the floor of the garage. So that helps out with rent, and we see that way too often. So we're going to go in that garage. And what are we looking for? We're looking for wiring issues. We're looking for open junction boxes and fire hazards, and I can't even tell you the things that I've seen in garages. Windows and doors, they basically just need to be operational, no holes in the windows, and they need to be functional. Chimneys are never an issue. Foundations, most older homes that we're going into have some sort of a foundation repair. It would behoove us to call out every single foundation issue. If that foundation wall is failing, if we've got 6 or 8 inches of a bow on a foundation wall and then gravity is winning the fight, we're going to have to address that, and we can talk through that on a one-on-one basis, because that's going to take some time to take care of. But a slight bow or a cracked wall or something like that, that's very rarely found out as a rental inspection finding. Stairways and balconies and decks, that is pretty common for us to have. So a 4-inch sphere, the size of a baby's head, that's something, when you're building the deck back in 1972, and the spacing for a deck baluster, your uprights on that, was 12 inches by the building code for the UBC back then. Go ahead and add some extra ones in there, so that a 4-inch sphere, it's basically a fall hazard for a young person, so it doesn't fall through there. That's on guardrails, decking areas, maybe even in the house of an overlooking onto the living room or something like that. So oftentimes that can be taken care of with some nice decorative ideas, tension cable, adding balusters, or something like that might happen. But a 4-inch sphere is the rule of thumb, and it has been for, I don't even know, over 20 years in the building code. Handrail is needed on 4 or more risers. 4 or more lifts of the foot needs a handrail. Cisterns, not an issue. Property is overgrown with weeds and brush. We oftentimes see piles of brush in the backyards of a rental property. Get those taken care of. Or, you know what, have the tenants take care of if you can work that into it. If it needs mowed, mow it. If the tree is dead, diseased, or dying, and it needs to be taken care of, take care of that as well. Unsafe storage of combustible material, also known as an excessive fire load. You want to know about those types of tenants, and we have those types of properties that we go into, and it's a hard, confusing conversation to have. And some of you might have property tenants that have too much stuff in your houses that you own. Talking through that with us on the phone when you schedule, giving me a call to say, hey, this is what we have going on, so that we're not surprised about it. We will always be the black hat for you. Blame us, throw us under the bus as needed. The inspector is not going to pass this, Mrs. Johnson. We're going to need to get this taken care of, get this level down to a manageable, habitable level. Not throwing out any treasures or family heirlooms or anything. Just getting the property in a livable, habitable condition. And that right there, that can be confusing to people. And it's also touchy. Oftentimes when we go on these properties, we're dealing with, very often, people with either some sort of a mental disorder or something has happened in their past to give them some trouble. We're respectful of that. We're walking into their homes. They're anxious about us walking into their homes, into your homes. You own them. And we're respectful of that. And I've told my inspectors, take a second. They want to visit with you about something and tell you what their story is. Pause. Listen to what they have to say. It helps kind of break the anxiety for them. Let them know that even though we didn't pass today, Mrs. Johnson, here's what we need to do to get the property into compliance. Speak to them like a human being, but be compassionate. It's too easy for an inspector to come in with a big iron fist and say, this is the way it's got to be. That's not what you're going to get with us. We're not that kind of people. It gets you nowhere, honestly. It gets you nowhere to do that. I deal with hoarding often. I don't even like to use the word, honestly. I just like to, excess fire load. But that's what we're talking about. I can tell you story after story after story after story of properties like that. And when you're dealing with that kind of a situation, it's not going to happen overnight. It's not even going to happen in 2 months. It's going to take a long time to get that property, your property, into compliance. And we're going to work through that and make the city and the city staff aware of what's going on to work towards compliance. Let's see here. Safe and sanitary conditions. Very often we run into unsanitary conditions. A dirty home is a dirty home, and that's the world we live in. But when you're dealing with an unsanitary condition, blatant bad living conditions for people of all ages, young people, old people, it doesn't matter what it is. The rental program is going to help resolve that in that home. Stairs need to be in working condition. Handrails, we talked about that. Habitable room, need to have a light and habitable room. Natural ventilation. Let's talk about a bedroom. So one of the things that we're going to do when we walk into a bedroom is push the smoke detector in the bedroom, preferably by the manufacturer specifications. The smoke detector on the ceiling, smoke rises. But it's also allowed to be within, if you have a drop ceiling, it's kind of hard to mount that. By manufacturer specifications, within 12 inches of that. So if you got a hard wall on this side, it's better or easier within 12 inches of the ceiling in that bedroom. It's called the Little Johnny rule, actually. When you send Little Johnny to his bedroom and somehow he's got some matches in there, well, the one out in the hallway that's probably there with that door closed, that room is going to be in a state of engulfed fire or, you know, a dangerous situation before the smoke ever got there because the door was closed. That's why many, many years ago the building code enacted the Little Johnny rule, and it's going to be in every bedroom. Carpet, mice, rodents, yes, we've seen it all. If you've got it, take care of it. Plumbing, we're going to operate every plumbing fixture, make sure that they're operational and not leaking. Bathrooms, adequate privacy. Every bathroom door has got to have a lock of some kind on it. Privacy is required. Clothes dryers vented to the outside. That's something to check. If you haven't been in your property and you think it's in great condition, look back behind the dryer. We will be doing the same. Very often those dryers are hooked up with a plastic or a vinyl vent pipe. Those vent pipes are for bathroom exhaust fans. They just happen to be 4-inch and they fit, and they're all over the place. And they're a fire hazard. Every one of those ribs catches lint, and it makes it a fire hazard. It's one of the top fire issues that the firemen have to deal with. So change that to a flexible metal or a hard pipe metal. The electrical service is something that's very often deficient. I've had, I was telling her I had a restaurant in a town that we had that had a huge electrical issue 2 days ago, and I closed that restaurant down. So we're going to walk in to see the electrical panel, open that panel up, make sure there aren't any open breakers in there where they pulled the breaker or they pushed the knockout out of that breaker. If they've knocked it out, put a 10-cent blank over it. You can buy them at any hardware store and they just snap in place so that it's not a shock hazard, and then label that electrical panel. Recipe card, ink pen, doesn't matter. One of the first places that firemen go is to an electrical panel to shut down that hazard. So label that electrical panel and make it safe. Open junction boxes in a basement throughout the house is very common. When we're walking downstairs into the basement, not only are we looking for a smoke and CO detector in that basement, but we're also going to be looking for wiring issues that are down there or up there as well. So if you've got so if you've got any wiring issues, get those resolved. If you've got junction boxes for when they've done a splice, that needs a cover on that. So wire nutted and a cover on that. So make sure your covers are on. That's one of those things that we see very, very often. Heating facilities. Right now, well, you've already passed the ordinance, but last year, if a rental person would have called into City Hall and said, you know what, we don't have any heat, there's really not much the City Hall could have done. And so this provides that check and balance system. And if we go there and you've got a tenant that just had an axe to grind and we're out there and like, yeah, the furnace works great. In fact, it's 2 months old. Why are we here? Well, they have to pay for that inspection fee. The tenant does. If it's unfounded, the tenant has to pay for it in the ordinance. So, so we went through the electrical, GFIs in the kitchen and bathrooms. So we're looking for protection. So if you have 5 bathrooms in a house, oftentimes the electrician will wire that with the master having the GFI, and all the other bathrooms are on that same circuit. Those other bathrooms, when you're doing your hair dryer in there and it trips it in the master. It's got protection. That's all that matters. Or if they want to put in a GFI breaker in the basement, that's fine. It's got protection. That's all that matters. In the kitchen, the same way. You've got 7 outlets across the backsplash out there. That lead side of that outlet is going to have that GFI. Don't put in 7 GFI outlets on that kitchen. Put it on the lead side, so when I put my tester in, and I will, on the far side and trip it, it's going to trip over here. They've all got the GFI protection on that. That's what we're looking for. So any water outlet or source, a slop sink, a bathroom area, a laundry area that's got a sink over next to it and there's an outlet there, that has to have GFI protection. Cover plates and switches over everything that's covered so it's not a shock hazard. We talked about that. Water heaters are very much a source of a failure for a rental property. Sometimes we see the vent pipe that pumps hot carbon monoxide into the house bumped, off, missing, installed incorrectly, you name it. We've seen any kind of things. The slope of that vent pipe coming off of the water heater needs to be at least 2%. So 2% is almost flat. 2% is the minimum. Up is better. Hot carbon monoxide likes to go up. Sometimes when you're seeing that, when you walk in there to do your pre-inspection, they have piped it and then they've put in a taller 40 gallon or more water heater in there. Well, that throws that vent pipe slope off and that's sloping down. Well, hot carbon monoxide doesn't like to go down, it goes up. So get that taken care of if need be. A discharge pipe off of the water heater so that when that pressure relief valve trips, the water heater has essentially failed or had an issue in there and it got too hot. When it builds up, that pressure relief valve on the side of that water heater will trip. That doesn't just blow hot scalding water out into the room. It takes it to a discharge pipe down to the floor. By code, 6 inches or less. We're not going to measure that. If it's got a discharge pipe that's anywhere close to 6 inches, we're good with that, but it does have to have that. Now we're going to jump into fire safety because that's probably our biggest thing that we run into. And we've already talked about the little Johnny rule. So where do you need to buy and place smoke alarms? And this, honestly, I say this and I never know if anybody follows through for it, but when you're buying them for your own house, for your kids' house, or whatever it is, we had it happen and the gentleman in the front row said, Jason, how many fire alarms do I have to have in this house? I feel like this is excessive. And I'll say what the fire chief, Craig Frazier in Ankeny, said one time. Sir, when your house is fully engulfed in flames, how many smoke alarms do you want to have in it to wake you up at 2 o'clock in the morning? So the answer is to code. That's what we're going to do. We're going to follow the minimum code for fire alarming in this house. So every bedroom, a smoke alarm. Outside of every bedroom, in the hallway, so let's say you've got a 3-bedroom house, in the hallway, a smoke and a CO detector. Oftentimes it's going to be a combo. If you're going to buy one, it's nearly the same price just to buy a combo. Just place that in there. If you want to have a battery operated one that goes in the outlet over here on the wall, that's great. The intention is to wake somebody up in an altered state of mind. So that's what you're working towards. 3 o'clock in the morning, maybe you don't live there. Maybe you're staying overnight or it's a house guest or something and you're in unfamiliar surroundings or you're a young person or whatever the case may be. Maybe you've been out on a Friday night. Having that early warning when you've got a problem, and the smoke detectors nowadays, they're catching a fire way, way, way before it used to be. A smoke detector in the 1970s, it doesn't even compare to what they are now as far as detection. It's catching that toxic gas that happens before the fire erupts. It's catching that way. It's ionization and photoelectric is what it is for the big words. But placing those in the house, in your own houses, in your family's houses, is a great thing to do. So every bedroom for a smoke. In the hallway is the smoke and CO detector. And then every floor, the basement needs a combo or smoke and CO. So basically a combo in the basement. And then if you happen to have an upper level, the same thing applies there. So every floor has a smoke and CO. Every bedroom has a smoke detector. So sometimes that gets a little confusing, but when you think about it, it's not too bad. A fire extinguisher. We're happy that you have one. It reads good on it. That's where it starts and stops. What size does it need to be? Doesn't matter to me. We're just happy that you have one. Have one for your own house, your own family houses as well, but it needs to be there to be compliant. Where does it need to be? I usually turn to the tenant and say, where's your fire extinguisher? Because they're the one that needs to know where it's at, because it got moved 17 times by whoever lives there. So I ask them where it's at. They need to know where it's at. It can be anywhere. It can be, I don't care where it's at, as long as they know where it's at. Passable egress routes. So I'm going to walk into that bedroom again and then walk up to one of those bedroom windows and get out. And oftentimes they've got a great big huge bedroom set in there that has completely blocked it, or they've got a beautiful set of bunk beds that has completely blocked your second form of egress to get out of that bedroom. You've got to have that second form of egress to get out of the bedroom, because when you wake up at night and you go to get out the door and it's a wall of flames out there, that's your other way to get out of it, and it can't be blocked. It can't have an air conditioner in it. Now if you've got 5 windows in there, put your window air conditioner in there. But if you've only got 1 window in there, that's going to be that egress window. I need to be able to walk up to it, unlock it, open it up, and my 230-pound self get out of that window. Am I going to measure your window for compliance? No. Can it be a camper window? No. Can it be a jalousie window that opens like this? No. We see all kinds of windows. So if you have window issues, we can talk about that after the meeting. But basically, I need to open up that window, and I need to get out of that window. So we've went through the list. Is this list all encompassing? Absolutely not. This is your checklist, and it's going to say that on the top of it, that this list is not all encompassing. You can't put everything that's in our code and policy on this list. This is what you're going through. I want to make that really clear. If there are things that are on this list, we don't have, can I keep 9 dachshunds in the basement in a back room in there downstairs? No, you can't do that. Sanitary conditions, you know, that doesn't go into detail about that kind of stuff, but basically, is the house livable and habitable? Great. You know, fist holes in walls, we talked about that, getting those repaired. I'm trying to think if I've ran into something that we haven't went through on the checklist. I think we're doing pretty good, you guys. Payment. So you've done your inspection. You got the high 5, gold star, I passed my inspection, great. We're letting you know that right then and there. You pay the inspector on the spot, check, cash, or credit card.